I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I'm Andrew DeWolf.
And welcome to Musicals with Cheese, a podcast where I try to get Andrew to like musical theater week by week and show by show. How are you doing today, Andrew?
Well, you know that I'm an aspiring musician. I actually just met this one guy, and he's kind of a dreamboat. He's drunk constantly. He's violent. He crashes his motorcycles all the time. And he invited me on stage once, and I think I'm in love with him. He did hit me and cheat on me a couple times. He seems to hate himself quite a bit.
Okay, I might be making some connections here. Was he the one that slapped you on the stage when you won your Oscar and or Grammy and then pissed himself?
Yeah, I think he did that. I mean, I have a couple different memories of these events. It happened a couple different ways, but I think that did happen once.
Well, damn. Well, I know the obvious thing you should do. Dedicate your entire rest of your life to him, because if you don't, he might kill himself.
Okay, but what if I do that and then he does that anyways?
Oh, damn. Then sing a big song and introduce you as Mr. Insert Name Here. In case you haven't picked up what we're throwing down, this week we are talking about every adaptation of A Star is Born so far. Let's take the time machine. Ooh, we're in the time machine now. And we're going all the way back to the late 30s, to the first adaptation of A Star is Born, which we wouldn't even call an adaptation then because it was just a film. Let's go to A Star is Born, 1937. Cue the music.
Did you get to the preview last night?
I did.
A Star is Born was written by Dorothy Parker, Alan Campbell, and Robert Carson, with music and lyrics by Max Steiner and Dorothy Dick and Max Snyder. It is loosely based on the marriage of Barbara Stanwyck and Frank Fay, which is it's never been confirmed, but everyone kind of knows that's what it was. It premiered at the Grauman's Chinese Theater on April 20th, 1937, 420 Blaze It. The film earned $2.37 million in the worldwide theater rentals, and by the end of 1939, the film had generated a profit of $181,000, right? Am I reading that right?
I think that was a lot in the 30s.
Yeah, that was a lot back then. It was the first film to show that films made about Hollywood could be successful. The plot of A Star is Born is a young woman comes to Hollywood with dreams of stardom and achieves them only with the help of an alcoholic leading man whose best days are behind him. So, was this the first one you watched, Andrew?
Yes, this was the first one I watched. I figured I would start with the original to kind of get a feel of what the adaptations are doing.
So I find that fascinating because a lot of people, and myself included, this was literally the last one I watched, just because of how the timing worked out and all that. So I'm fascinated. What's your impression on this on your first watches, and how did it change now that we've watched all the rest of them?
I think that this one is okay. It isn't like good or bad necessarily. It's just kind of like it works, and I get what they're doing. I think that because it's a 30s movie, they were afraid to portray the leading man who I think is usually just named, like Jackson Maine or something like that?
That's the most recent one. I think the other ones
aren't they? They're like related names. They like use similar names.
Yeah, they always keep Maine or something like this, but I think this one might be Howard.
Howard? I can't remember. I feel like they didn't want.
Like, it all kind of blurs together at a certain point. Norman Maine.
Okay, that sounds right. He is an alcoholic, but they don't portray him as negatively as some of the later adaptations do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you picked up on that.
It depends on the adaptation, because I honestly feel like he is portrayed more negatively than he is in the next adaptation, in this one.
That might be
Frederick
true.
Mark, like, this guy has like this weird kind of debonair noir vibe to him where he always kind of felt dangerous. He doesn't feel very likable from the get-go.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just me going in with the knowledge that he's Frederick Mark, who also played Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is another very duplicitous role where I just see him as kind of a villain.
I just watched the 70s one, and coming off the 70s one, thinking back to this one, it's like, dang, he was like a nice guy almost.
The thing I really appreciate about this one, and other versions stepped away from this more, and I feel like it progressively got more away from this with every adaptation, this is firmly Esther's story. It starts with her, we see it through her point of view, and we follow her through like the weird kind of Shirley Temple, Judy Garland-esque path that she follows into stardom.
Which makes a lot more sense. A lot of the other ones start with Main's story, which is just like, this isn't like the story is called A Star Is Born, not A Star Dies. like you're following the wrong character.
I really like the Esther in this version. I really think she's got this strong like feeling toward her. Janet Gaynor and Frederick Mark were both nominated for Oscars for these roles, which is pretty incredible. Didn't win, but just nominated.
There's a character that I think is interesting that is like basically a main character, but isn't even in any of the other versions really, which is
Is it the grandmother or the best friend?
The best friend is in some of the other versions, actually. I was talking about like the producer guy who is like this friendly producer who shows up like all the time and is just like super nice, and it's very weird that he has such a big role in the movie. And then he might have been in the 50s one, but it like the 70s one and the 2018 one, there's just no reference of this character. Like nothing remains from this character whatsoever.
You got like the mean producers in those ones.
Yes.
Both of those.
And there is a mean producer in this one.
Yeah.
But you don't have the nice producer who is like, oh, you didn't know Norman Maine, and oh, can I do anything for you, Vicky, or whatever, or Esther? Okay,
Vicky, Esther, whoever.
Oh my goodness, the this one has the rich and famous contract essentially, where how you become how you become famous is you find a producer and he offers you the standard rich and famous contract.
Miss Tracy, prepare the standard rich and famous contract for Kermit the Frog and Company.
And then they change your name and you become a superstar immediately.
The sad part is you say that, but that's kind of how it was in the 20s and 30s. Like that's how Shirley Temple got. That's how Judy Garland got. That's how Mickey Rooney got there. Like these low-down people from the Midwest or Nebraska or wherever coming straight to Hollywood and immediately become superstars because it was such a new medium.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that there's nothing like that now. It's pure nepotism now. There's you either.
I mean, it's pure nepotism back then too.
Sure, but there was like a hope, like you could get the rich and famous contract. There's no way in now. There's no way in now. If you're not already in, you can't.
That's why I really do you do this when you watch movies? Like if you see an actor you like, you're like, all right, who are your parents? And they got green text on Wikipedia.
I don't do that because and you should know this, I don't know any actors.
That's fair. Like I'm always afraid, like, damn, are you like just some rich trust fund baby? And then what was the most recent one? I was watching Nightmare Alley and I was looking up Toni Collette. I'm like, oh, your parents are poor Australians. Yeah, I can like you. You made it here naturally.
Yeah, but who is his grandparents?
So this is actually the first Academy Award nominee for a full picture, colored picture. So Technicolor, everything. First one to ever get a Best Picture nomination, which is, it paints this differently. It's like one of those first like Technicolor hits.
So this was still black and white era, essentially.
Yeah, very, very much. I was a little like, I won't say triggered, but I was like, my brain couldn't compute. The first scene, we have Hester coming home from the movies and all that. Esther, not Hester. Coming home from the movies with her mother and her grandmother and her siblings and all that, messing with her. And her mother is played by Auntie M from The Wizard of Oz, but who was in The Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland, but it's not the Esther that is Judy Garland. It is the other Esther. It just made my brain hurt a little bit.
This is a movie for people who love old Hollywood. Like this, it is everything old Hollywood. And it's not a fucking musical at all.
No, there are like moments of like music, but it's not even close. And it's weird that every other following one in some way is a musical.
Yeah, it's actually strange that it's if you were to call this a series or a franchise, it completely veers into musical territory after this one, which is strange because this one has the main characters don't sing ever. at all through the entire thing, as far as I remember. Maybe like briefly.
Yeah, it's not. And this is the day of vaudeville. I'm surprised it wasn't a musical. Like this, that probably would have gotten much more attention had it been.
Probably would have won that Best Picture nominee.
Yeah, and also this was what are these fun facts? They were worried a lot about the rights to this film. Selznick International Pictures dissolved, leaving the film's rights to financer John Hay Whitney. Whitney then sold the film to Film Classics Inc. in 1943. While declining the rerun revenue, Film Classics placed the film up for sale with producer Edward L. Alperson with the intent to remake the film. Instead, Alperson sold the film's copyright, including film, story, screenplay, and score, to Warner Brothers in 1953. Warner in 1954 issued the first remake. In 1965, the film entered the public domain on the United States because Warner did not renew its copyright registration in the 28th year after publication. Weren't those the good old days? However, the officially restored version is copyrighted by Warner Brothers. The rights to the film's story, screenplay, and score, and affirmation master elements also rest in Warner Brothers. That's why they still have exclusive rights to the story, despite it being in the public domain.
Okay. So Warner Brothers owns this, despite it being made by somebody else who essentially they just don't exist anymore, and they haven't existed since the 40s. But Warner Brothers doesn't own the copyright. Is the story still public domain?
No, they own the story.
Really?
And because they keep remaking it every 20 or so years, they can keep owning the story.
So how does that work? It went into public domain, but then they got it back?
Because let's break this down into Star Wars terms.
Yeah.
Which is, so I'm sure you've heard the rumor. This has never been confirmed, but this is what a lot of people believe. So the original Star Wars, George Lucas made it. His wife edited it.
Okay.
Correct? So with that, she's entitled to residuals for that film that she edited. So in 1997, he's sick of paying residuals and child support and all the other things that he has to pay to his wife, and alimony, whatever the fuck. So he does the special edition. And from that point forward, the special edition is newly edited with new editors and new things. And therefore, he doesn't have to pay the original editors anything because this is a new product. And he takes the sole residuals. That's kind of the way.
This is the first time I'm hearing that, and I'm sad how much sense that makes and how much Star Wars fans have spun it as like, George Lucas just hates his own movies, and he thinks that they could be made better, but in fact, it's just George Lucas hates his wife and doesn't want to give her any money.
It's always down to an emotional core with everything.
Oh, it's a much more cruel story now than I initially thought.
So it is kind of those same rules. If you keep remaking it, you still own the story because you keep changing what it is. That's why they own the remaster version of The Star is Born, because it's technically a new version with changes.
The moral to be told here is, Star Wars fans, if you want the original cuts back, you're going to have to mend his George Lucas's relationship with his ex-wife. Okay, Star Wars fans, here's the plan. We trick them both into a dinner.
Speaking of movies we shouldn't have made, how about we compare our opinions to those of the crazy, kooky people on Letterboxd.com? It's time for previews! Part 1.
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
All right, Andrew, are you ready?
As ready as I can be.
All right, this is a speed run. We got a lot of these to get through. All right. First Letterboxd review that you have to guess whether or not it's a 1-star or 5-star just based on the review alone. CW, suicide.
5 stars. They like it.
That was a 1-star.
Oh, damn.
All right. Next one. Yes, I did watch this at 6 a.m. on a weekday with a pot of coffee. So?
1 star.
That is a 5-star. Andrew. Thought Kanye was the first to ruin an acceptance speech.
Kanye has ruined a lot of stuff. And Kanye, he likes the 30s now. Oh boy. Jesus. 1 star. 1 star.
That is a 5-star.
God
Andrew,
damn.
you are 0 for 0. Let's keep going.
Oh, I'm not doing good.
Gentlemen of the Academy Awards and you other suckers.
5 stars. 5 stars.
That is correct. You got one. All right. This is so me when I'm a star that's born.
1 star. 1 star. They're mocking.
That is correct. Next one. Scotch with a splash of soda, please.
That's right. He asked for that drink like fucking 10 times. And then they fill the whole glass with scotch and then put like a tiny bit and he takes it away before they even add any soda.
I guess I've been drinking too much lately.
Oh, you ought to cut it down. It's bad stuff. Scotch and soda.
5 stars.
That is correct. Last one. Viewed before 2023.
What, did you watch it in 2022? Okay.
Or before.
5 stars. They're happy about it.
That is a 1.
Fuck.
And that is all for the first adaptation of A Star is Born.
Hey! You mind if I take just one more look?
Andrew, we gotta hop in our time machine again. We're traveling to the 50s, to 1954! Woo! To talk about the next adaptation of A Star is Born. Cue the music.
By every trick of his, you're on to. But fools will be fools, and where's he gone to?
A Star is Born, 1954, was written by Moss Hart with music and lyrics by Harold Arlen and Ira Gershwin, based on A Star is Born from 1937. It premiered at the Pantages Theater on September 29, 1954. During its initial release, A Star is Born earned $6 million in North America's distributor rentals. However, despite its huge popularity, the film failed to make a profit for Warner Brothers due to its excessive costs. We'll get into that. The plot of which is a movie star helps a young singer/actress find fame, even as age and alcoholism sends his career into a downward spiral. All right, Andrew,
Yes.
how'd you like this one? This is the first proper musical.
I gotta say, I don't think I like this one that much.
Ooh,
It's too long. It's way too long.
but is it though?
Yeah. This one is 3 hours, and it's the same story that every other version has told in 2 hours. The music is a nice addition. I don't like the change of focus to God, his name's not Norman Maine in this one, is it?
Let's find out together, my friends. I think it's something like that. It has to be like
His last name's always Maine. It's just
it's sometimes.
wait, no, it's not in the 70s one, is it?
No, the 70s one is a little different. Yes, he is still Norman Maine or Ernest Gubbins.
Yeah, so Norman Maine is the focus of this one. Like he's more of the main
Yes.
character. I just don't think the story works as well from his perspective.
Without giving him anything else to do.
Yeah, because they don't change anything. It's essentially the same story still.
Why don't you talk about that story real quick? I mean, we talked about the history and the development in the last one. Why don't you talk about the story here?
Yeah, there's a alcoholic actor who is kind of like a hotshot, but really near the end of his he's like a burnout, you know?
Yeah.
He's at the end of the life cycle of his fame, essentially. But he finds a younger girl who's struggling to get into the industry, and he pulls some strings and gets her in. But then she becomes more famous than him, and he gets really upset about that in certain ways. And then he kills himself at the end. But they get married and everything, so she gets really upset about it because she loved him.
And the big thing that ends nearly every version of this story, except maybe the Streisand one because women's lib, is when she introduces herself at the end, because she's changed her name to Vicky Lester, and her name has been a big part of it. And this was just an improv, not scripted thing. They were just trying to figure out how to end that first film. And she introduces herself as Mrs. Norman Maine to always credit her career to him.
Yeah.
Which is a choice.
It's something. It's not the worst possible thing because it's sort of framed in a way where it's like he's a disgrace at that point, and she's like saying, I don't care if he's a disgrace, I still loved him or whatever. But yeah, it's sort of a weird way to do that.
Yeah. But let's talk about the 1950s one. Judy Garland. I know we talked about The Wizard of Oz, but we've not really dove into her career too deeply. What do you know about her, just so I can kind of, if anything?
I know her name, and I know that she's famous, and I'm sure I've seen her in a lot of stuff.
So you don't know any of the controversy going on with her or anything like that?
I don't follow this type of stuff.
That's fine. So, She was a very famous child actress starting in the early 30s. She was in The Wizard of Oz. She was in vaudeville. She's done a lot of stuff, specifically for MGM, which she was under contract for. But being young and having very specific gifts, they got her addicted onto a lot of drugs, including sleeping pills and cocaine and other things.
By they, do you mean they actually pressured her into doing the drugs themselves, or she just did them because she was in such a bad position?
No, it's more like, oh, you can't get up? Come on, take these. Can't sleep? Here, take these. And
so they actually pressured her into doing these drugs.
Well, no, it's like you're a child and adults are giving you things that they think will help you. So they're giving you barbiturates and all that.
Yeah. That's really bad.
But it led to her not being a very stable human being for most of her latter half of career. So she has this really big, like, start to her career where she's like on the same level as like Ginger Rogers and all those things. But she can't pull herself together very well to do other things. She is like famously unable to show up to set, getting sick very often. So much that she didn't have a career when this film was happening, and she just been taken out of her MGM contract and left that. So this was poised to be her return. This was her big return to the big screen after many years. And she does great. Let me just say this. In the film itself, she reads very charming, very engaging, very fun, in the same way that like her daughter Liza Minnelli would read in more modern films. Like, I love Liza Minnelli and stuff like that. She captures you with the screen, and she's on the older side. She's like, well, older side. She's older than she appears in the film. She's like in her mid to late 30s when she's probably supposed to be like 19.
Yeah.
And she's keeping up with the dances and all of those sorts of things. However, due to her issues, the film went wildly over schedule and over budget, and it was a nightmare to make.
Oh.
Despite Judy Garland being on her best behavior during the early days of shooting, she slowly lost control. She first called in sick on November 9th, which kept her out of the film for 4 days. She got sick again shooting outdoor locations and missed 3 more days. She was sick again for 2 days in December, and they had to postpone a scene because she didn't like her costume. Other days, she had to leave early because she was too tired or sick to go on. By February, there were 41 days behind schedule. In late March, she took 2 weeks off to get herself off of all prescription medications. Ultimately, production would drag on for 9 months. And let me just put it this way. That production shouldn't go more than 3 months, even on the biggest, like, kind of thing.
Yeah, because they're just filming the stuff. Like, not even like the editing or any of that stuff. It's just
that is just shooting.
Oh my god. So it's her fault essentially that this didn't make any money.
Yeah, but let's not pretend. So George Cukor, as I pronounced his name incorrectly in our Wizard of Oz episode and got a lot of people jumping down my throat. Great, wonderful, fantastic. Do you remember what he did on the Wizard of Oz?
I don't.
So there were 4 directors of the Wizard of Oz, 4-ish directors.
Yeah.
He was the one that came in before Victor Fleming took over, but between the first director that was hired. So he was kind of this bridge director before others came in. So he's the one that got rid of like Judy Garland's blonde hair and all those kind of bad choices that were originally there until finally someone came in.
Yeah. Okay.
So he had worked with her before. He worked with her for less than a week on The Wizard of Oz, but he has a lot of the same stylistic choices that Victor Fleming had, meaning being a violent piece of shit. While filming the Academy Award scene where Esther Vicky is inadvertently slapped by a drunken Norman Wayne, the whole side of Judy Garland's face was bruised.
Oh my god. So, like, actually got slapped pretty bad.
Yes, and she looks like it. If you watch the scene, it looks rough.
Did they, like, shoot it a lot of times, or did he direct them to actually slap her super hard, or?
Yes, and he's that kind of director. So, in a way, he also does something which you're not always supposed to do, and a director should never tell an actor to do, which is lean into your own personal drama to make the scene perform better, specifically when she's having the breakdown about why Norman's trying to kill himself and all that. She's like, yeah, you're basically living a life of Norman Maine. You should just react that way.
Oh, why are directors like this?
I have no idea. Power trips?
You must have some insight, because I mean, you're like this, right?
No.
Jess is a director, so I'm sure he has some horrific abusive tendencies.
I don't, though. Not that I know of. If so, you would know it by now. You've seen me with others enough.
This one actually has songs.
Yes, it does. The Man That Got Away is an incredible number.
Okay, there are actual good songs in this. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like 1950s musical numbers. I mean,
Yes, but they're all diegetic too. Like
Yes.
they're not like one proper like I Want song or Wizard of Oz style. They are all in the universe.
yeah. So it's not a musical in that sense. It's more,
Mhm.
it's a music movie. I think we've used this term before, where it's just like it's a movie with music in
With
it.
songs.
Yeah. But Judy Garland does sing very well.
Mhm.
And all of the songs do sound great. It is of note though that there's some racism.
Some?
2 of the songs are essentially irredeemable, I would say.
Yeah. Yep. There's the one where she's performing for her husband. And she puts on a lampshade and pretends to be quote unquote Chinese.
Home from days I passed with my someone. I'll be someone at last. With my someone, I'll be someone at last. They discovered me in China too.
And that's not great.
I think that's the same song where she pretends to be African as well.
Yep. And the worst part is the chorus like says like horrible things while she's doing this.
And it's supposed to be like a funny, like this is like a joke scene. It's just like
it's a charming number.
This is the charm number. Like you were supposed to look at this and be like, oh, this is such a good, like cute, funny thing that she's doing, and like it's so entertaining. But it's like looking at it now, it's like, oh my God.
It was not a great look, and it's a really tarnished part of this film. And I haven't even gone into like the alternate versions and why there's random slideshows in the most versions that you're able to see.
Yeah,
Why don't you describe it? I'll tell you why.
There's about probably 30 minutes of this, or close to 30 minutes of this movie that is just slideshows. It's literally just audio over still frames of certain things that I assume is supposed to be the scenes. And I thought at first that maybe it was like lost footage, like or something like that. Like this is like a unreleased movie or something. I guess that is close to the truth. So, why don't you go into it?
So George Cukor, the premiere was around 3 hours, which is the runtime of the restored version, quote unquote restored version. And audiences loved it, and they were like, oh no, this is fantastic. Don't cut anything. They released it at 3 hours at first. And then later, Warner Brothers, so it released, what did I say earlier? It released on September 29th. And then by October 22nd, it was reported Warner Brothers had removed 27 minutes from the film, and the new version was sent back to theaters on November 1st. So they then cut that film to bits without the permission of the director. And then it just kind of didn't make sense anymore because all they cut was plot stuff.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. They literally, they have 2 songs that are essentially just racist jokes that they could have easily cut. But instead they chose to cut like 20 straight minutes of just plot relevant details.
Like, how did she get to Hollywood? Or, they're getting married?
Yeah,
how did that happen?
Let's just
Who proposed?
cut all of that. Keep the part where she puts a lampshade on her head and pretends to be Chinese, though. That's
or
necessary.
the entire number about her quote unquote mammy.
Yes, we need that. We need it.
I mean, I guess if it's like we pay it for Judy Garland, she's gonna sing and dance. And they weren't making the money that they were hoping because, you know, they went wildly over budget and over schedule. I don't get it.
But is it cheaper to show a shorter movie?
You can fit more screenings into it per day.
Okay. So you cut 20 minutes, you probably get one extra screening per movie theater. Yeah. I mean, I'm of the opinion that there's probably 20 minutes in here that you could have cut. But they definitely did not cut the right stuff at all. You do not cut all of the plot relevant backstory and not even just backstory. It's just like stuff that's actually happening in the fucking movie. They're just like, nah, I don't need that.
Nah, I can't handle that. That being said, 2 Wilhelm screams. There are 2 Wilhelm screams in this movie before Star Wars.
They're showing the movie that the Wilhelm scream is from, I think, at one point, and then it just shows up again later.
In the song where she pretends to be Chinese.
Yes, I couldn't even figure out why it was there. I was just like, oh, Wilhelm scream, okay.
What did you think of Norman in this film?
I think, again, I have a similar thing with the 30s one. It doesn't feel like he's as, like, embarrassing and, like, the movie is trying to show, like, trying to tell us, like, over and over, like, he's an embarrassment, and her being seen with him is like, oh my god, he's a nobody who everyone hates him. And it's just like they're telling us that, but I don't feel like they're showing it as well as some of the later ones do. Though this one, I think it's okay. I mean, obviously the award scene is like that's pretty good.
He's so pathetic in that scene, especially compared to the previous one where the guy's like, oh, you bunch of losers, the Academy. I got one of these. It means nothing. And this guy's like, please give me roles. Please give me more movies.
I just think the 70s and the 2 that are coming after this, like, really fucking nail the washed up loser vibe that the movie needs for the, like, later half.
I agree. James Mason is a weirdly compelling actor to me. I don't know if you've ever seen Stanley Kubrick's Lolita adaptation.
No.
No, it's not a good movie. I don't think Lolita's a good anything.
Yeah, do we stand Lolita? I don't think
so.
I don't think that needs adaptations.
I think the book in and of itself is a condemnation of it, and it was just literally a writing challenge of the author. Like, can I make a pedophile endearing? And his answer was, guess not. Like, that was his literal, like, hey, that was a fun writing exercise. Oh, no, you're making this popular? No, stop. A writing exercise gone wrong. But he plays, like, Herbert or whatever the fucking name of that character is. It's some double name that's really stupid. And he is doing the same performance where, like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. And just nervous, neurotic weirdo playing up the comic side of it. And he's strangely compelling in a way of, like, Jimmy Stewart, where even though he's kind of a douchebag, yeah, I kind of like him. And one thing I liked about this film is they show him drunk first. We introduce him while being very, very belligerently drunk.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's pretty good. I think the problem I have with it is it just goes too fucking long.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
At a certain point, it's just there's too much of them. This story is so, like, it's such a short sort of story to tell, and I don't know how they managed to make this 3 hours.
I don't know how they managed to make this 4 times. All right, you ready for previews?
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
All right, you ready? First one. How the fuck am I supposed to believe Judy Garland as a naive ingenue when she's literally 37?
Can you tell, though? Can you really tell?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. She looks great.
I mean, I could. I could because I know who Judy Garland is.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe if I didn't, it would have read differently.
We're gonna go with a 1 star.
That was a 5.
Oh, really? All you have to say is something bad, and then you give it 5 stars.
All right. Watch this one in class, P.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad that we're showing this in schools. 1 star.
That is correct. Very good, but also fell asleep a couple times.
Yeah, because it's fucking 3 hours. 5 stars for very good.
That is correct. It's like one of those great movies that you can fall asleep with a few times. Next one. Bruh.
Yeah, that was my opinion. on some of this. It's hard to get past, like, once you realize the movie you're watching has a song about someone's mammy, it's like, oh no. Oh no. Okay. Yeah, 1 star.
That is a 5.
Oh,
Andrew,
no.
last one. The fucks with the still frames.
They ran out of footage. Sorry. Film's expensive. You want to pay for that shit?
I will say, I'm in pre-production of a film right now. I did think of like, man, if I ever go like over, I'll just replace with like stills and call it a movie.
Yeah.
And say it's a stylistic choice.
It's a stylistic choice. Yeah, that's what it is.
Oink.
We're gonna do 1 star because that doesn't sound like a good impression.
That was a 5 star. That is all for Previews.
Who the fuck are these people? Literally, it's like, what the fuck's with the still frames? I love this movie.
I mean, you can like a film and be like, why the fuck are there still frames?
Sure. But really, 5 stars for that? What about 4 stars? Where's the 4-star review?
On that note, we're about to go into a mid-show that we're going into the 70s. We'll see you after the break. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt you in the middle of the show, but we've got to at you. Today's show is brought to you by the extremely kind donations by our donors over at Patreon. Patreon is this wonderful place where you get to hang out with us, and we also have this wonderful Discord chat where you get to hang out with other people that like to hang out with us. As well, you get a lot of fun opportunities like chances to have game nights with us. You get the episodes probably a couple days early. You get the video version of this episodes where you get very much extended versions. Andrew's cutting the final versions like a crazy person. And you know what? It gives more to our patrons. If you want the extra spicy material, you're going to have to check out our Patreon.
I'm not cutting more
As
than
well,
Bree did. Come on. Am I really?
You kind of are. Yeah.
Oh, I thought I wasn't even cutting that much. I was worried about it.
We are also having a lot of other fun stuff coming up on Patreon soon. Andrew and I are going to be doing a commentary on something pretty quick. Andrew, I actually have a pitch at you. I don't want to see if you'll do this with me right now. And now that it's on the air, you could cut this probably, but I want to see if you'll do it. You down to do all 3 Rugrats movies and cover it on Patreon?
All 3. That's what? The Rugrats movie, Rugrats in Paris, and the Rugrats meet Night of Thornberry. Yeah, we could cover those. Rugrats in Paris is a good one.
Rugrats in Paris is the only one of them I'd call a decent movie. Like, just a quality film.
I think the Rugrats movie has charm, but it's not that good. And the Rugrats meet the Thornberries is not good.
Yeah. But if you want to watch those before we cover them, hopefully next week, maybe, if Andrew can watch them in time, you can find them on HBO Max and catch up and see what we had to say along with it. As well, you can also ask us questions that we will read on the air. Andrew, are you ready for our first patron question of this break?
Sure.
This is from Mimu, and they asked, are there any musicals you've covered in previous episodes where your opinions on them has shifted? Example, a show where you were really negative about it, but in hindsight warmed up to now. Or a show that you really praised, but now feel a little less fond of. I have 1 or 2, but what are your answers, Andrew?
I want to say I don't think my opinion has changed that much on most shows. I think our very first Rent episode was too harsh, but I don't think my opinion has like changed because I still don't like the show. But maybe that's like I'm slightly more positive. I think like Something Rotten I thought was pretty funny, but I think a lot of that wore off because I think comedy shows sometimes you just second viewing's just not as great. But I still don't think I don't like that one. So I think that's still like I liked it. Now I like it a little less than I did. I don't know. I haven't had any major shifts. What about you, Jess?
Sometimes, like, especially with patron requests, we kind of have to rush to get an episode out before we can actually form an opinion on them. And a lot of those I really wish I had had a more thorough crack at. I think the specific ones that come to mind are like Pacific Overtures or Chicago, where those were just kind of, or The Band's Visit. The Band's Visit is a great musical, and we spent the entire episode mostly just talking about the 2020 election.
That was a weird time to make an episode, though.
Yeah. But the one where actually my opinions changed, like, significantly from what I said in the episode, so much that I probably wouldn't mind doing a revisit on it, is Next to Normal, which I was very positive about at the time, but on proper reflection of both the cast creatives and what the messaging of that show is. I feel like it is not the paragon of mental health that I thought it was, and its messages are kind of like anti-getting help and anti-therapy and anti-medicine.
Yo, I feel like I said this in the episode.
You did.
Dang, I was on top of it for once.
You really were. And I feel bad that I recommended it so hard there, just because I'm like, there's some catchy tunes.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think my opinions were well formulated, but I feel like I said some of that stuff in that episode.
Yeah, you had good thoughts. It's just like the episode I'd like to redo a lot of episodes before we really figured out our structure, which took a while, probably more than most podcasts do, but that's less than my opinion changing. But let's move on to the second question, which is, what's the weirdest food you have ever eaten? And is it cheese related? And that's from Toriana Frazier.
Honestly, I'm not a person who eats weird food. I think the weirdest food I've ever eaten is probably alligator jerky, which isn't even that weird. I'm gonna be honest. It's just beef jerky from alligators instead of from beef.
I will say, Andrew, spending New York weekend with you is discovering that you eat like a child.
Yes, I love it too. I will not change.
He loves the cheeseburgers and nothing else. The chicky nuggies,
cheeseburger, chicky nuggies, pizzas.
Living your best life. I don't know. I like most things is my problem. Like, I guess probably the weirdest thing I ever ate was calamari, which is a lame answer, but like it's tentacles. It's pretty weird.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, like it's not cheese related. Like, have you ever been to the Melting Pot? It might just be a Midwest thing, but
I think
where they melt cheese.
I think you've sent pictures from there, but I don't think I've never been.
Oh, wouldn't you say chocolate cheese? That's a weird food that you ate on camera for this podcast.
You know what? Chocolate cheese wasn't that weird, but I guess if I was telling somebody about it, they might think it was really weird. But really, chocolate cheese, it was basically just fun, you know?
On that note, thank you, patrons, for writing in. If you want to join these wonderful people that get to have their questions answered, come do that. And our current patrons are Melissa Goldman, Danielle Renix, Justice Stampede, Ewan Cassidy, Monica Thoreau, Mina Maneri, Brent Black, Nathaniel Stacey Coombe, Joseph Evans Green, Mary Lou Choquette, John Vanals, Russ Walker, Musical Hell, Kyle Summers, Jen AC, Scoot the Technicolor Dreamcoat, Liz Lim, Allison Stellar, Nothing is Certain Except Beth and Taxes, Desbian, Ren Cullen, Rafael Martinez Salaz, Jessica T, Mitchell Young, Chai Teacup, Katie McDonough, Chris Marcotte, Mimu, Kiji, Marie Anastasio, Layla, RJ Narija, Carly B, Bjorn Hermans, Erica S, Toriana Frazier, Sammy, The Most Lopez, Lyanna Morton, Kaylee Blazier, Cinemageddon Reviews, Villainous Miss, Sofiana Ali, The Omega Geek, Paige Pearson, Maddie Wargol, Elisa Erdman, Anna Loskatova, Cheska Veray, Sarah Den Blekier, Jamila M. Brown, Evan Ball, Zachary Torres, Gathering Party Before Venturing Forth, Rora Morasso, Mara Forloin, Captain Rod Taskett, and Lisa L. They all give us a little extra financial support that helps us keep the lights on here at Musicals with Cheese. If you'd like to join them in supporting us and get to all those fun perks, come join us over at Patreon. Also, if you're already a patron, it's never too late to upgrade. Remember when we talked about Melissa Goldman and what was going on in their life? They upgraded their Patreon tier after that.
Oh, wow.
That was pretty wonderful. Our first patron ever just upgraded their Patreon tier. And that's fucking incredible. Let's get back to the show. Oh my gosh, we're in a time machine to the year 1976. Star Wars is almost here, but not quite.
I want to learn what life is for. I don't want much, I just want more. Ask what I want, and I will sing. I want everything, everything. I'd cure the cold and the traffic jam. If there were floods, I'd give a damn. I'd never sleep, I'd only sing. Let me do
A Star is Born, 1976, was written by Frank Pearson, John Gregory Dunn, and Joan Didion, with music and lyrics by Roger Kellaway, Barbara Streisand, and Paul Williams, who you might know from the Muppets movies. It was based on A Star is Born, 1937. It premiered December 18th, 1976 at the Mann Village Theater. It grossed $80 million at the U.S. box office, making it the second highest grossing picture of 1976 between Rocky and King Kong. The plot of A Star is Born is drunken has-been rock star John Norman Howard falls in love with unknown singer Esther Hoffman after seeing her perform at a club. He lets her sing a few songs at one of his shows, and she becomes the talk of the music industry. Esther's star begins to rise while John's continues to fall. She tries desperately to get John to sober up and focus on his music, but it may be too late to save him. So, the 70s.
This movie is aggressively 70s. Like,
yeah,
it's like 70s rock culture is just embodied in this in a way that I don't even know if any other movie does it this well.
In that, I mean that as an insult, of course.
Yeah, of course. I hate the 70s.
The 70s might be the most unpleasant time in films like cinema. Like,
there's a lot of like ugly movies in the 70s that are just kind of like gross. This is like the time when exploitation movies were like big, isn't it?
yeah, the early 70s especially. Like before, like the filmmaking brats came in the late 70s with George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, De Palma, and all of them. Scorsese a little bit. But once they started taking over, the 80s was really like the heyday of the proper populist film. And in these days, it's just kind of like, we love the anti-heroes. We love it when the films look like garbage, and we like it when people are hippies and don't wear shirts.
Yeah, and this has all of it. And holy shit, our main character is the biggest piece of shit. Not ever, but like, maybe one of the biggest pieces of shit we're ever supposed to see as sympathetic.
So let's dive into this. This was the last one you watched, if I remember correctly.
It is. I skipped this one at first because I was like, I'm tired of watching these old movies. I want to watch something more modern. So I watched the 2018 one first, which I guess maybe was a mistake because the 2018 one seems very heavily based on this one.
Yes.
Specifically. This one is a big departure from the 50s and the 30s one, because now there's no acting, there's no big Hollywood contract that you have to sign. This is just, they are musicians, they're in the rock scene or the pop scene or whatever, and that's really it.
And what do you think are the biggest differences between the way this film represents the relationship of the two leads and every other one?
I think in this one it's more, since there's no like producer or contract or anything like that, this one, their like stardom is more directly tied into each other from the beginning.
Also, just like Chris Christopherson is a different kind of presence in that role than like the fancy button-up actor types.
His name in this one is John Norman, I think. So
Yeah.
they actually took the first name and not the last name, and then the 2018 one takes the last name but not the first name.
Stupid.
Yeah. So this is John Norman from Norman, Maine, and then 2018 is Jackson, Maine.
John Norman Howard. So it's John Howard, but Norman's the middle name. It's stupid.
Okay, whatever. John Norman Howard is a absolute drunken slob piece of shit from the get-go, and holy crap, you have to follow him for two and a half hours almost.
He does have a charm to him, but the sad part is, I would say out of all 4 adaptations, this is the only one where the two leads have zero chemistry.
Oh, just none. You do not understand what she sees in him at all. Because from the start, he is like the first time they meet, he crashes his motorcycle off the stage. It's like in the 2018 one, and they do it a lot better, and we'll get to it, I guess, but just as a brief comparison, their first meeting in that is like they actually go up and sing a beautiful song and the crowd loves it. Whereas this one, it's like he invites her on stage, is trying to like drag her on the stage, and then steals a motorcycle and crashes it. Like, that's the first time they meet. And then she's like, you know what? This is the one for me. This is the guy I love. And they get married.
There are moments of charm in there. Like, I like their first meeting when she's like, yeah, come to my house, come tomorrow, and I'll make you breakfast. And then he just sleeps outside her house until he's allowed to come in.
That's creepy,
Like,
though.
that's a fun moment. It's a cute-ish moment for, like, a romance story. If that was, like, anything else,
Okay.
like, that would have been fine with me. But
I think all of these
it
have
goes downhill pretty quick.
every single one of these movies have a bit of a, like, is it creepy or is it romantic vibe to, like, their first meetings? Because
Yeah.
he always does this weird thing where he's like, oh, I just wanted to see you one more time.
I wanted
Which
the last look at you.
is always played off as romantic, but I feel like in real life that would be really fucking creepy.
I gotta pull that on my girlfriend sometimes.
Just
Like, hey, I want one last look at you.
she'd probably fucking hit you. It's like,
What the fuck, man? Much like the first or the last film, this was a fucking nightmare to make.
of course.
Chris Christopherson, who plays the lead, said, filming with Barbara Streisand is an experience which may have cured me of the movies.
Yes, I'm done. Is she that bad?
She is very difficult. I think we talked about her very briefly in our Funny Girl episode, where she is irreplaceable in the eyes of many people as a cultural landmark. She is notably difficult to work with in the best and worst cases.
Oh boy.
But do you get more than you put in? Like, is she worth it for the star power or XYZ? So much that she is a punchline in the Elvis movie. And I'll describe why that is. And maybe we'll do that on Patreon one day and talk about the new Elvis movie. But Barbara Streisand insisted she wanted Elvis Presley to play John Norman Howard, which would have been a very interesting choice.
That would have been a very, I mean, that might have been good.
And this is washed up level Elvis.
Yeah.
This isn't like peak of his like best.
It would have been too real, I think. And I feel like that's why Elvis would have never agreed to it. Because it's like, this is just Elvis in real life.
It is. And this would have released a year before his death and maybe changed the way his career trajectory went. And you'll know about this more when we talk about Elvis on Patreon, because I don't think we'll do a real episode. That belongs on Patreon.
He's why?
He's what? So he's white guy, Colonel Tom Parker, refused to let Elvis be in the movie because he really wanted to do it. He's like, yeah, that sounds good. He was angry that Streisand did not come to him first before going to Elvis. He told the producers if they wanted Elvis, Elvis's name had to be above the top of the movie poster, above Streisand's name. Moreover, it was said that he asked them for a very large sum of money. Because of all that, Elvis Presley didn't make the movie, although he had always been Streisand's first pick. But in the Elvis movie, it's like, I hear you're going to be in the remake of A Star Is Born. He's like, Streisand's a pain. Or something like that. Some mean comment about Barbara Streisand.
So that doesn't actually happen, though, because it seems like he wanted to be in it. It's his manager was like, no, we're not doing that.
Well, when we get to that movie, you find out that his manager basically like imprisoned him in Las Vegas for the rest of his life in a contract that he couldn't get out of.
Oh, that sounds like something a manager would do.
Yep. So that's why, like, the idea that Elvis, like, impersonators are walking around Elvis or as Las Vegas as Elvis and all that, like, his legacy is forever tied to the place that he was imprisoned in.
Poor Elvis, honestly, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, it does. Or that movie goes into it deeper. We'll talk about that on Patreon. So director Frank Pearson was so angered by his experience working with Barbara Streisand on this film that he wrote the first-person account published in both the New York and New West magazines, detailing what a horrible experience it had been, and he portrayed Streisand as egocentric, manipulative, and controlling. The article was published just prior to the film's release in December of 1976, and Streisand and Pearson would never work together ever again.
Okay.
Despite everyone hating working on this film and despising each other, every actor despised the director despised every actor, it came in under budget and on time.
Did they make money?
Yeah, they did. It got terrible reviews, but it was very, very well received at the box office. Like, made a lot of money. So this is the only adaptation of A Star Is Born where the two leads did not get a Best Actress and Best Actor nomination. Every other one.
So this was not positively received at the time.
No, not by critics. It made a lot of money. The album was #1, made a lot of charts, but no one liked the film. no one liked the film at all. In fact, it's probably due to a lot of the studio meddling, the behind the scenes stuff. John Peters, I don't know if that name rings a bell to you. He was the producer of the film and Barbra Streisand's boyfriend and former hair stylist. And he was the one who insisted that John Norman Howard doesn't die at the end. And the director really wanted the character to die or not commit suicide at the end. And everyone else did want him to commit suicide in the end because that's kind of the point.
Yeah, because it sort of ruins there's no real moral to this story, but it ruins the idea of the story, which is like his career falls so low below his wife's career that he sees himself as like hindering her career, so he takes himself out of the picture essentially. Whereas in this one, and it's weird.
Woohoo! I'm drunk driving.
It's weird because me personally, I got the vibe that they were trying to imply that his real vice wasn't drinking too much or anything like that. It was that he crashed vehicles. Because the first time we see him, he crashes a motorcycle. Then there's this like tense scene where he's riding a motorcycle too fast and she's like screaming at him, begging him to stop. And then he crashes and then she thinks he might be dead. And then, of course, the third time it comes back again, and this time he crashes a car and actually dies. So it's like, it's almost like they're trying to tell us that, like, no, drinking wasn't the real problem. He needed to stop going so fast in these dang cars.
He needed to have his license suspended.
Yeah. It's like, okay.
Were there any songs that really stuck with you from this version of A Star is Born?
There's the ending, which is way too fucking long. And it's literally just a close-up on her singing maybe it's only like 3 minutes, but I swear it feels like 7 minutes.
I could learn to tame the clouds and let the sun shine through. Leave a troubled past and I might start anew. I'll solve the mysteries if you're the prize. Refresh these tired eyes with one more look at you.
Oh, I remember. I was there.
She goes up on stage and she's like sad that he died, and she's just like, I'm gonna sing his song that I found. It's literally an unmoving camera shot, close up around just like her face and shoulders. I don't know if there's a name for that type of shot, but
like a good medium close.
Yeah, and then it's just that for the entirety of the movie until the end.
Remember when they did that in the Les Mis movie and she won an Oscar for it, Anne Hathaway?
I wouldn't have given that an Oscar either, but I guess that at least that was for performance and not cinematography.
This film is wild. It is not a good watch at all. Like, it's the only one that I actually felt the length. I felt the length on this one even more than the Judy Garland one, despite it being longer.
It just doesn't work. There's no chemistry. You hate the guy. You don't even really like the girl that much. It's literally just like, end this fucking shit, please. That's really it.
Yeah, let's go into previews really quick.
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
There's a part of this movie where it's literally just a Barbra Streisand fan cam.
Yeah, that's the ending. 1 star.
That's a 5 stars.
Who likes Barbra Streisand at this point? My God.
Leah Michelle, I guess.
That's because she's like Barbra Streisand reincarnated.
Barbra Streisand's not dead yet.
Doesn't matter.
Next one. 30 minutes in, my mom turned to me and said, "See, this is why I hated the 70s.
1 star. And yes.
That is correct. Next one. And the last one. The truth is, I'm gay.
5 stars.
That is a 1 star, and that is the end of previews. Andrew, let's hop in this time machine one more time to the year 2018 for the most recent version of A Star is Born.
I'm falling. In all the good times I find myself longing for change. myself. I'm of the deep end, watch as I dive in. I'll never meet the ground. Crash through the surface when they can't hurt us. We're far from the shallow now.
A Star is Born 2018 was written by Eric Roth, Bradley Cooper, and Will Fetters, with music and lyrics by Lady Gaga, Bradley Cooper, Paul DJWS Blair, Dave Cobb, Nick Monsoon, Lucas Nelson, Brian Newman, Mark Nillian Jr., and Benjamin Rice, based on A Star is Born 1937, and probably all the other versions too. It premiered at the Venice Film Festival on August 31st, 2018, with a wide release on October 5th, 2018. It grossed $215.3 million in the United States and Canada, and $220.9 million in other territories, for a total worldwide gross of $436.2 million against a production budget of $36 million. The plot of the film is seasoned musician Jackson Maine discovers and falls in love with struggling artist Allie. She has just about given up on her dream to make it as a singer until Jack coaxes her into the spotlight. But even as Allie's career takes off, the personal side of their relationship is breaking down as Jack fights an ongoing battle with his own internal demons. So, not that it's worth anything, but there's one thing about this film that fucks with me a lot.
Okay.
What is the main girl's last name?
I don't think there is one.
She doesn't have a last name.
No. They never give one, I don't think.
Well, I was wondering the entire time if they were going to do, like, I am Mrs. Jackson Maine, because remember they changed, like, that was the big thing in basically the first two versions. And then I was like, wait, they never even gave her a last name. They never used, like, Esther or whatever the fuck.
So I think the Allie thing is a reference to the, what is it, Vicky thing?
Yeah.
Those, like, Allie, Vicky. But yeah, they don't reference any last name at all.
Until she gets married and then it's Maine.
Yeah. I think this one, more than any of the other ones, feels like a romance novel.
I think that's the best part about it.
I kind of actually agree. And I think this is, maybe it's just modern bias, like this one looks the nicest and everything, but I feel like this one's the best one.
Yeah, I think it's hard to disagree with that one.
Like, I don't want to just be like, oh, well, the newest version's the best, but
No.
it kind of is.
It dives into everyone's personal life. Like, they gave everyone a home life and a family and things that really latch on. Like, Jackson Maine has a brother, and that's probably, like, the best, like, relationship in the film.
The brother's, like, an interesting character that actually has something to say, too. Like, it's just, like, he's not just, like, a nobody manager to get mad at. It's just, she has a father and a best friend or whatever that, like, matter. They do stuff in the movie.
They feel like human beings and not just pieces and pawns for the narrative that we saw in the 30s.
Yes. Jackson Maine legitimately feels like a nice guy who is absolutely destroyed by alcoholism,
Yes.
like more so than any other previous version. Like the 70s one, I think, captures the alcoholism and all that, but he just seems like a horrible person. Like, it's just, he's not nice. Like, there's no redeeming anything. Whereas here, you can tell that he's like trying, but he's failing. You know, it's like a real human would.
I also feel that Allie is given a lot more agency in her own story in a weird way. And you can't deny both the, like, romantic and sexual chemistry between Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga in this film. Like, it's real, it's honest. Like, literally, I think the most real part to, like, that sums up their entire relationship is when he's like, let's have sex, and she's like, hold on, then she goes to the bathroom, like, wipes out her cooter and, like, tries to make herself smell better, and by the time she's back, he's already dead asleep, blackout drunk. And then she's like, all right, time for bed, I guess, and then goes to sleep, and then he wakes up in the middle of the night and they just have sex many hours later after he, like, that is a summary of their relationship. Like, it is very, very, like, that scene is like, oh, this is real. This is the reality of having an alcoholic as the person that you love.
Yeah. It feels a lot more realistic in some ways. Although in other ways, it's like,
Yeah.
would a person who is this alcoholic be this nice? I'm not sure. Like,
But he's not always nice. Like, he's
That's true.
antagonistic and cruel. He's just not that way to her.
Yes, though I do feel like this type of relationship probably would be more abusive than we see in this, but it's a movie. You don't have to show that. It's fine.
Yeah, and I feel like this character wouldn't stay in the relationship if that were the case.
Yes, I agree. Like she would probably leave immediately.
Yeah, she's not more in love with fame than she is with him in a way that, like, the worst he does is he gets a little angry in a fight and says something that cruel. That's the worst he does. He doesn't cheat on her. He doesn't hit her.
I mean, the worst he does is embarrass her in front of everyone, but
Yeah, but he feels, I think the most important part of this film that makes it work for me is the guilt he feels and how broken down he is by realizing what he's done to her and how much he's made her life worse. He's not just like immediately jumping into the ocean or whatever to like get out of there. He tries to make himself better.
yeah.
This film, unlike the other ones, relies a lot on like improv and just going with the flow and a lot of shaky cam and close-ups, which in some scenes really work. Like anytime they're performing live, I saw this film in theaters on like a really big screen. You feel how intense that is, and you can't fake that audience reaction because they just went to like Coachella and shit, set up the cameras, and just brought Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper out without telling the audience.
Yeah. One thing I will say is if you were a amateur singer and were brought out to sing to that type of audience, you would fuck up. I'm sorry. Like, you'd fuck up. Like there's so much pressure there. So that's unrealistic. But again, it kind of leans into this vibe where it feels like a romance novel. Like it's like she's almost a self-insert character for the audience, or she's supposed to be, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the A Star is Born legacy, even from the first film. She is a self-insert character for the audience. What if you were famous?
Yeah, it's like, oh, what if some guy dropped into your life and made you famous, and also he was like tragic, and you could maybe fix him, but you can't. It's tragedy.
Yeah, and there are moments in this film that really, really, really work. Even outside of the original narrative, like any moment with Sam Elliott and Bradley Cooper, that scene's great. That scene is wonderful. Bradley Cooper earned his Oscar, or both of them earned their Oscar nominations for this film.
Sam Elliott's a little tight-lipped.
You don't understand what I'm going through, man. Fuck you. You don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
They do say fuck a lot, which I guess makes this one different.
This one also has songs that are maybe worth talking about.
Yes. Specifically, let's start with the big one, Shallow.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you've heard this song on the radio if you haven't seen this movie. I'm sorry, you know this song.
Yeah. Never in my life have I seen a film play a song that is supposed to be like an immediate sensation in a way that I bought it, and I'm like, yeah, that song is immediately like the most incredible song, like as far as anyone's heard. That song goes viral. I bought it, and then it happened in real life too.
Yeah, it's an actual good song too. Like it's a good pop song. It's a little bluesy, which I like that they added that.
Yeah. However, that isn't the only song in the show, or movie. It is the biggest one, obviously, but it's not the only one. I really like Jackson Maine's solo numbers, like Alibi.
Told my dying daddy that I had to run away. I looked him in the eye, said there ain't no other way. So woman, if I tell you that I love you, be okay, 'cause I ain't lying. I don't lie without an ounce of my head.
He does some good, and it's like this like blues rock type thing, and I think it's pretty good. I like honestly, I kind of like the French song that she does at the
La Vie en Rose.
Yeah,
that is a very classic, like well-known song, but she does it great.
Yeah. I just mean that it's a well done. Like,
oh yeah, there is the reference like in theaters. I'm like, this is a choice. I know what you're doing here, movie. When we first introduce her, the title is appearing on screen. She is singing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," which is a very pointed reference if you ask me.
Okay, this version doesn't acknowledge that the 30s one exists, but it will acknowledge the other two.
Yeah. So, because by all technicality, the Judy Garland one is the biggest version of, like most of the people that saw the original 30s one are dead now. So there's no nostalgia to play on, where the boomers that were really into like the Judy Garland one or the 70s one really can latch onto that. And it is kind of like, what if you took Chris Christopherson from the 70s one and put it with Judy Garland from the 50s one, and we just made that movie? And I'm like, yes, that is the movie I'd like to see.
I think it takes most of its cues from the 70s version. Plot wise, it's very much just like the same sort of structure there.
I would disagree because the music numbers it takes from the Judy Garland, or at least the way they're integrated into the story.
Okay. Thankfully, it doesn't end with a 7-minute close-up on Lady Gaga.
No, but it probably could have, because she's a much better screen performer than Judy, or what's her name, Barbara Streisand. That final number, the I Will Never Love Again, is a gut punch and a great way to end this film, and sums up the message of all the versions better than any of them.
Don't wanna feel another touch. Don't wanna start another fire. Don't wanna know another kiss. Baby, I'll stay on your lips.
Don't wanna give my heart away to another stranger. Don't let another day begin. Won't let the sun light in. Oh, I'll never love again. Never love again. Never love again. Oh, I'll never love again.
No, I think this is the best one. If you're gonna watch A Star Is Born, you should watch this one. That's just my thought.
I agree, but the biggest gut punch of that last song is when it's like getting to the biggest part, and then they just cut to him singing it on piano to her. Like that is
and then,
just good filmmaking.
And it just ends the movie. They just end it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that this has that none of the other ones has, is an actual fucking ending.
The suicide is a little goofy though.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it took them 4 tries, but they came up with an ending.
On that note, how about we go into our final previews of the night?
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
First and last peek of Lady Gaga's acting career.
I feel like Lady Gaga was in more stuff, was she not?
She was in House of Gucci.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, 5 stars.
That is correct. All right, next one. Watch this one with Bradley Cooper.
I agree, 5 stars.
That is correct. I just sat at the end of the movie for 15 minutes questioning everything.
Emotional resonance? People don't like that, do they? That's probably a 1 star.
That was a 5.
Fuck.
Always wear your ears in.
That's true. And that's actually something I like. They included that he's struggling with tinnitus, which is like a real thing. Wear earplugs if you are a musician. That shit's
Do you do
loud.
it?
I try to, yeah. So 5 stars.
That is correct. I had no idea this movie would be about drugs.
1 star.
I don't think it really is.
It's about alcohol.
Yeah, it is a 1 star. Okay, last one. Too realistic, (0).
Damn, 1 star. They wanted to give it a 0, but they can't. So they included it.
It was no, it's a 5 star. (0) means O face.
Oh, okay.
All right. And that's it for previews. You did great, Andrew.
I really tried. I feel like I didn't do that well.
Though that being said, why don't you tell us your thoughts on all the Stars Born films and give us your cheese rating for each? And rank them, of course.
Oh, good lord. Why don't we rank them quick, and I'll do it all in the same sort of go.
All right.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen one of our rankings before or heard one of our rankings before, I just do A, B, C, and D. D being basically just bad, and A being as good as possible or
Okay.
the best. I usually rank on a curve, so I'm only this ranking is on a curve based on just the stuff we watch. So
when we hit episode 300 next year, then we'll do a full ranking of everything we've ever covered.
yeah, that'll be fun.
That'll probably be a live stream night where we just stay up until we get it all ranked.
Okay. We're gonna start with the beginning, 1937.
Yep.
Honestly, I think I'm gonna give this a B rank. I don't think this was that bad.
Okay,
I don't know. I don't know if you fully disagree with that, but this one,
I think that one's probably my third favorite.
yeah, I think this one. It's either my second or third favorite. It's kind of like close.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one it's fine. Obviously, the lack of songs holds it back a little bit, but I think it tells the story in a more concise way than any of the other ones do. I kind of like it. It's okay. It's a 1930s movie, so you know, it's got that kind of old Hollywood charm to it as well. Cheese rating. Let's give it like we'll do it like a cheese platter rating. Like I'm gonna look up cheeses to put on a cheese platter.
All right.
And we'll give it different stuff. Okay. I'm gonna give this brie.
For brie views.
Okay.
You mind if I take just one more look?
Next up, I think 1954 is also a B tier.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't disagree with that. I think I just changed which order, but they're both B tier for me too.
It's too long, and that's really my biggest issue with it. And it's weird that they have cut footage, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And then there's also weird racist shit, so I can't recommend it because of that. But I guess if you can push past it, there's good stuff in there. Like Judy Garland sings well, obviously.
Actually, now that you think about it, it's not a complete film, so I think the 31 has to go above it because at least that is the full story.
Yeah, I mean it's close though. They're both close for me. We're gonna give it horseradish cheese because it's a little spicy.
I'm gonna give it blue cheese because they blew it up.
That's true. They did. You could give it like Swiss because they cut holes in it.
I like that one. I'm changing it to Swiss because it's got a few holes in it, literally.
Hey. I just want to take another look at you.
1976, is that right?
Yes.
C tier. I don't think any of these
Definitely.
are bad enough to go in D tier, but the 70s one is my least favorite. It drags. There's no chemistry between the leads, and I really just don't like Mr. John Norman as much as I like the other lead
Norman Maines
men.
and Jackson Maines.
Yeah. So that one's the worst one, and I would recommend if you're gonna watch any of these, don't watch that one.
What's the cheese rating?
Cheese rating. It's gotta be something I don't like that much. This is like a cheap, like melted beer cheese that they put on the platter to dip stuff in, but it's like you got it at like fucking Walmart or something. It's just crappy.
I am giving it a 70s style cheese ball because no one gets excited when they have a cheese ball. Like you're not angry because they brought something, but it's like no one's gonna be like, oh boy, I'm to open that shit up.
Yeah. And then up in A tier, you get the 2018 one, which just nails it. It's the best one. It gets everything right. It takes elements from the 50s and the 70s one. There might be elements from the 30s one, but they take stuff from those versions and then make something that's good, and there's good music in it, and good performances, and there's actual chemistry between the characters. It just works. And they add some of their own stuff in there too that works better, like the brother character. I like the friend character that they add, the father. It's just good. It's a good one. You should watch that. And as a cheese, I'm gonna give it the classic sharp cheddar cheese on the platter, which is the one that I'm gonna reach for when I grab that cracker.
Not nice to call Bradley Cooper that. I'm giving it mozzarella because in 2011 there was a rumor that Lady Gaga moisturized her face with mozzarella cheese because she was such a big fan of it. And I think that's funny.
Hey.
What?
I just want to take another look at you.
That's the ranking.
Okay.
Do you agree?
It's hard to disagree. Like literally.
I think the only thought I could have is maybe the 70s one could go in D tier, but I don't think it was that bad. I don't think it was that bad.
It's so boring though. It's the only one that I found really boring.
I just don't think it was bad enough where I would put it that low, like that much lower than the other ones.
And for my cheese rating of the 30s one, it's government cheese.
Okay. That makes sense.
But thank you guys for listening. Please follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher at Musicals with Cheese. We're on Patreon at Musicals with Cheese. We're on Twitter at Cheesy Musicals, Instagram Musicals with Cheese, YouTube page Musicals with Cheese. Patreon-only podcast, Patreon, which is me and Andrew are going to talk about the 3 Rugrats movies. It'll be fun. You got to check that out. Also, we're going to talk about Elvis on there one day, hopefully sooner rather than later. Email us at musicaltheaterlives@gmail.com. Our keeper of the cheese is Juliet Antonio. The show is edited by Andrew DeWolf, and he's doing a fucking great job, if I can say so myself. Our theme songs were created by Robyn Nash of IOU Music UK. Thank you to the Broadway Podcast Network for having us on the platform. All right, Andrew, is there anything else we got to say before we wrap this up?
Be careful of random men you meet in bars.
Tell me something, girl. Are you happy in this modern world? Or do you need more? Is there something that you're searching for? I'm on the deep end, watches that diving. I never hit the ground.